got a great conversation. As we've said, we've been hyping this, we've been plugging this all week long. Of course, one of our best guests ever. This or really any show I've ever done. And if you guys have searched the archives of the show, you know that we have a very special episode already up there with her talking all things Dawson's Creek. But it's just one of the many favorite things that we love that she has been a part of. Let's bring her on right now because I know I can see her sitting there waiting for us. And
Hello.
There she is.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks, man. I saw you in the waiting room. I'm under the assumption you were able to hear and see me hopping on.
Well, it's funny because I could see you, but then I kept going, hello. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you hear me? And then I was like, oh, and then I heard you talking. I'm like, oh, he's live. Okay, never mind. I'll keep my mouth shut.
We were kissing your butt a little bit before you even hopped onto the screen.
Well, so don't let me interrupt you. Continue to kiss my butt.
Oh my God, that could be the whole show, of course. And again, as you know, we've been promoting this and talking about this and having conversations and people chiming in. They want to ask you questions in all sorts of social media outlets, in all sorts of groups, because there's so many different movies and TV shows and things that people love that you've been a part of, all totally separate from one another. So we've really hit a lot of fan bases with you. You're a demographic magic, Nikki. So
nice. Lots of networks and studios.
Absolutely. So listen, for those of you who are just kind of stumbling into this thing, maybe didn't see the 1,000 ways that we've tried to promote this show. Thank you for being here. This is Nicole Bilderback. She is our guest. She has been a favorite face for so long. You've seen her in classic films like Clueless. I have to read this because it's too much. Can't hardly wait. Bring it on. She's appeared on Dawson's Creek, on ER, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, of course, the Freeform hit Cruel Summer as well. And that's just scratching the surface of all the things that we can talk about with you. But does that kind of cover at least a little bit of it?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you did good. Yeah. I mean, I like how you threw in, some popular older stuff earlier on in my career, and then some recent stuff as well, more recent.
Yeah. Well,
99 and yeah.
We see where we are. We're at 90s to now right now, but I mean, there's so many cool things that you've done since then that it's hard to ignore that. And people wanted to chime in on some of the newer stuff as well. So nice. We are all over the place. I hope you're ready for an all over the place kind of interview, because
those are my favorite kind. That's fine.
As is tradition with these things, I'm going to ask the first question. It's coming from me, and that's it. Everything else has come from people all over Reddit and Facebook and other ends of the social media world. So
those Reddit people, they're no joke. They're ballsy. I love it.
They are not. They're tough to crack too. Like they were not an easy place for me to even get into. But once they accepted me, they've certainly been receptive to really being a part of a lot of these interviews that we're doing. So
nice. Cool.
Yeah. So, but I go first. It's my show. I get to do that. I press the buttons. So I want to know, and I feel like, we've talked so many times, I'm sure this has come up before, but at this stage of the game, especially with Cruel Summer being as popular as it was, over the last year or two, being out in the world, being out in public, what do you think is the role that the most people want to either talk to you about or recognize you from out on the street? Like, what is your signature role at this stage?
I would say I get recognized the most for Bring It On and Clueless. Okay. And I think the reason being is probably because if you think about it, those two movies have really stood the test of time. They really are. They're just, not only are they timeless, but I mean, if you think about it, they cover really 3 generations. They covered, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z. And and the fact that both films are still so wildly popular. Bring It On, well, Clueless came out I think in 95? And then Bring It On came out in 2000, but yet these are movies that are still, especially Bring It On, well, both of them really, but that are still hugely popular to this day. that
Mhm.
I'm getting 10-year-olds that are like, oh my gosh, she's bring it, I mean, it's crazy. And of course I'm getting, dads that are like in their 40s and 50s, because they saw it when they were younger. And so there really is no limit to the fan base for that movie, which is so cool and rare, actually.
I'm going to skip ahead, but I want to ask you this now. Somebody had asked about Clueless. Did you know, like, did you feel like this is a movie that would kind of stand the test of time? But I want to ask you generally about all these projects that we've talked about. Like, was there anything that you did, especially going back to the 90s, that you had an inkling of that young in your career that you'd still be talking about in 2023?
No, not real. I mean, does anyone really? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, and especially back then, I mean, granted, the industry and entertainment in general has evolved so much over the years. But I mean, when we were doing Clueless, I mean, imagine reading that script, just the text, going, whatever, as if, you're like, oh, okay, I think I see. But then it wasn't until, we sat down for a table reading, that you're like, aha, this works. And then of course, you match a major studio, Universal Studios, and I mean, sorry, that was Paramount. And then, the great cast, and it all just really came together. But we had no idea, or at least I didn't have any idea, it was going to be such a huge box office hit and a cult classic at the same time. And then same with Bring It On. I mean, we knew we were involved in something really big and special. It was very first trilogy movie pretty much ever. Yeah. And but we had no idea that it was going to be, again, a #1 box office hit.
Yeah. And we're going to bounce around back and forth these projects and other things. So let's go to, I'm going to name drop some of these people, and some of them, the questions kind of blend together or have asked similar questions. So I'm going to also list a lot of people after the fact when this is posted and on demand. But Sakura Drop is somebody who wanted to kick things off with. Big fan of Clueless, both the film and the TV show. Does she know why they had her play a different character when she guest starred on the show, even though her character in the film was clearly named Summer and was friends with Cher, Dion, and company? Was it just one of those things that wasn't deemed important, or an oversight, or whatever?
That's an excellent question. I honestly, I don't really remember. What I do remember was I remember going in and meeting with Twink Kaplan and Amy Heckerling. Twink Kaplan being one of the producers of Clueless, and of course Amy Heckerling, the director. And I remember I was going in meeting with them at Paramount, and we were discussing the series and the show and everything. And they were like, I think it was something along the lines, and God, if Amy, if you happen to see this, I'm so sorry if this is inaccurate, but I believe it was something along the lines of, they weren't necessarily bringing every single character back, but they wanted to bring me back. And so, and I actually think I remember reading the sides for Ty. And maybe it was before they locked Brittany Murphy in, I don't know. But anyway, so the point being is it all worked out. I basically came in as, they named my character Nicole. Well, I don't know where they got that from. But they named my character Nicole. And, I think it was pretty much supposed to be Summer, but a different name. I think really they had the good intention of, they wanted me to be a part of the show, but they weren't necessarily bringing Summer back per se.
Right. Yeah, well, hey.
As long as I'm working, as long as they want to be a part of the show.
I'm sure there's a lot of people, a lot of fans out there who are way more upset about that than you were. Not a question, but I really liked her stint on Dawson's Creek. It's always fun seeing her pop up in such a variety of things that ended up being iconographic. Is that a word? Did we just learn something?
You know what? If it's not, I'm going to make it a word, because I like that.
I do too. I do.
We're going to start it. Let's start it. That's really cool.
Hashtag iconographic. Love it. Yeah. That's, and you were a part of the conversation. So t-shirts for you.
Oh, yes.
By the way, guys, thank you anyone who's joining us live right now. And of course, if you're catching us in the middle, this will be available on our brand new Facebook page. We're also celebrating that today. It's completely revamped. It now includes our entire library of everything we've done from the recent and distant past and everything we're doing in the future. You can check it out at facebook.com/90s to now show. Of course, our YouTube page as well is there and is being updated a little more slowly, but you still have a ton of stuff to check out over there. So if you want to chime in on chat or post any questions, we can try and catch you live as well if you want to add to this party. Lots of questions from TC182 leading the charge. A bit of a fan of Can't Hardly Wait. So let's hit the highlights. Did Nicole ever get the opportunity to see and watch the original cut, not the PG-13 version of Can't Hardly Wait, with all the scenes that were cut that involved alcohol and deleted scenes? I have not heard of this version. Is this a thing?
Yes, I have seen it. Yes.
Is it very different? Is it like the Richard Donner Superman cut, like the
I know.
3-hour?
Right. Yeah, I mean, God, keep in mind, forgive me, this was so long ago. I mean, it was so, and the older I get, the less my brain, my memory capacity. But I do, well, the movie was originally called The Party.
Okay.
And then they changed it to Can't Hardly Wait. But yes, I did. I saw the original, the director's cut, the original version. And it was just, I mean, the movie's great. It's just such a great, fun film that it was just, just included a little bit more alcohol, a little bit more this and that. I think, look, for business reasons, when you change a movie from R to PG-13, you're expanding an audience. You're expanding a box office audience. And because this is, we're all in high school, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's where the money, the box office is going to come in. So.
And there were so many people that were part of that cast that were either emerging or already established names and so popular to kids that might not necessarily get into an R-rated movie, right?
Sure. Yeah. When they were casting that, I remember they released in the breakdown services, which for us actors and in the entertainment industry, that's like a release of roles that's in the actual, like I call it, it's the matrix for the entertainment industry. But they actually released a role, and for my role, they were specifically seeking me out. They're like, will the reps for Summer from Clueless please contact our offices?
Wow.
And I think, they did something similar with Seth Green. And anyway, the point being is they basically wanted to put all of young Hollywood at the time in one movie and have one big party. And that's what they did.
It was like an all-star team. Like, let's pick our favorites from all the movies that people already love and the TV shows. And
how smart is that, though?
It is. Yeah,
that was so smart. Like, even there's only like what, 6 leads, like 5 or 6 leads of the movie, but then there's all these smaller, fun supporting roles that everyone basically got to make like a special guest appearance. But they had like names at the time making these appearances.
Yeah, and it was such a fun movie, even PG-13.
Yeah, absolutely. It had a lot of heart too. I thought it was really sweet.
Yeah. Did she know that she is included in a music video, the alternate music video with the cast of Can't Hardly Wait for the song High by the band Feeder to promote the soundtrack?
I did not. Am I?
You've crossed over.
Is that no? That would be my second music video.
Oh.
So for Clueless, we did a music video. Luscious Jackson, Here. The song is called Here. And I actually knew I was shooting the music video for that. So, but it was all of us except for the girls. It was all of us except for Alicia, and there's a music video out there that I'm in. But I was not aware of this. I have to check it out and see.
Yeah, look at that! Look at that!
Now I get to be like, hey, music video vixen. There's 2 now.
Yeah, now you can write a book specifically about your years as a video vixen. Yeah. Do people say that anymore? Video, I guess.
That's how old I am. So I mean, look, probably not. I'm sure they come up with new words by now.
Was the experience of being in the Clueless TV show as fun as shooting the original movie?
I had a blast shooting the TV show, but you know what's fun is that movie ended up being so special for us all that
Mm-hmm.
you kind of can't compare it. I mean, they're two, even though it's the same, you know, the same project, but yet it is also totally different because here you have a feature film that was a #1 hit at the box office and you turn it into a TV series. So you're going to have different elements involved and, you know, different contexts and things like that. So it was the TV series was a blast, but I really can't compare it to the film. Like, it was as fun as making the movie.
Mm.
It was a lot of fun, but I mean, I think when we shot the movie, we were all, you know, a little younger then, and we didn't know. I don't know. There was just something kind of innocent, I think, about shooting the movie that made it really special and
Yeah.
extra.
In a very metaphorical sense, it's always hard to compare the experience, I'd have to imagine, of making something based on source material versus making the source material. Like the first experience is always like the special one, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's one that started it all, you know. So
Yeah. Um, True or false? Were you in the unaired pilot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
yes, I think so.
A lot
No,
of
no,
people seem to think so. A lot
you
of
have
people,
to. You have
Buffy
to.
fans are very excited, and they see. I mean, I'm not sure how widely seen. I'm not too knowledgeable about the Buffyverse, so to speak. So I don't know if this unaired pilot has seen the light of day. I'm not really sure. You could perhaps speak on that better than me.
Well, it's so funny because again, that was so long ago. It was so long ago. But I think yes, I believe I am. So there I remember doing the pilot or shooting. Yes, I think it was the pilot. Because here's the thing: I actually originally I tested for the role of Willow. It was
Mm,
me and another girl, the original Willow, who was cast in the pilot.
yeah.
Um, and then she got it, and then they ended up replacing her, of course, with Allison Hannigan.
Mhm.
And so that's why they had to tape the pilot over again because they obviously had a recasting. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha. So
that's so
you
funny.
were.
And I'm shocked because I'm like, oh my God, I haven't thought about that in years and years and years. I'm like, I am actually, yeah.
Look, we had James Marsters on the show a few weeks ago, and
Oh, that must have been cool.
they're a super cool guy, but there is nothing like the response to a potential interview about anybody related to the Buffyverse by that fan base. That's a pretty powerful thing.
No joke. They are no joke. The Buffy vampire is like their own. They're like in their own universe. They're like their own army. Like I'm not. They're like they're like military. I mean, they know anything and everything. They're crazy insane. I mean that in the best way possible. But there's like
Mhm.
a college course now, right, for Buffy or something. And
I'm
there's a college
sure.
course you can take.
I think so. I think
How
so.
huge it is.
Um, let's see here. What are her favorite teen movies from the late 90s to the 2000s? Um, and I guess that would expand beyond what you've been a part of. But I mean, as you see that whole kind of era of movies, do you feel like that chunk of time, the the few we've mentioned, the Clueless, the Can't Hardly Wait, like those few years were so strong as far as that type of movie. Like, do you look back and still see that as sort of a peak for that kind of storytelling?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you know, I know you and I have talked about this before, but Clueless started it all. It started the whole teen movie genre. It brought it back to life. It was the first one. It was the very first one of the 90s. You know, and what I mean by that is, you know, for me in the 80s, we had like Pretty in Pink and, you know, we had The Breakfast Club, you know, you had movies like that. And then that kind of genre just sort of faded out. And then along came Clueless. And then along came all these other Can't Hardly Wait, all these other movies that just, and it ended up being massive. So, oh my God, can I even remember though? Like what other teen movies? I know that, see, what other movies were back then? I remember there was Sugar and Spice only because that was there were cheerleaders too in that, but it wasn't really a
Right.
movie. Um,
I'm
um,
going to drop another one, and I'm going to shift the question
yeah.
a little bit because I know that like so many of you were always like in contention for roles
Yeah,
in these
yeah.
different kinds of movies. So seeing the same people again and again. One big movie we're not talking about that you were not a part of was American Pie. Was there any
Nice.
was there any talk of potentially your involvement in that? Do you remember? Did you
No.
know of it at the no, I mean, it just seems like it's right there in that realm of
I remember hearing about it,
yeah.
and maybe I auditioned for it. I honestly, I mean, it was so long ago. But that's right. I forgot. That's another classic. Oh my
Yeah.
God, American
Although
Pie.
if you think about it, they kind of went in the other direction in everyone was pretty much an unknown in that movie at that point. So it
Yeah,
may have been let's stay away from, the success stories that we've seen in the movies of recent years and
and it was so ballsy, especially for back then. It was such a ballsy, but yet it was just, I mean, it was a funny movie. It was really witty and smart and inappropriate, but in all the right ways. And
right.
I mean, it was I just think it was such a genius movie in its own right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um Jennifer Love Hewitt has said in an interview from 2019 that she is developing the sequel to Can't Hardly Wait around the reunion of the original high school gang. Have you heard anything about that? Is that a thing?
I have not, but I think the crying wanna have sex girl needs to come back for that. She is still crying and she still wants to have sex.
Those two aren't necessarily related to one another, folks, but they were both key factors in the personality of your
What
character.
a brilliant idea. What a brilliant idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be super fun for them. Yeah.
I'd be excited. I think many people watching this would certainly be, you know, on board just from
Like,
the
where are
announcement.
they now? It's like I know there's been a lot of talk, of doing a Bring It On reunion with original cast members.
Wow.
And I think that's been in talks for a little while now. But that would be super fun too.
Sure, sure. Yeah. I mean, do you going off the script here a second, but doing this show has really kind of solidified for me, and I think for a lot of us, the fact that we are in sort of a heyday of people just loving the 90s all over again. Like the
Yeah.
nostalgia is at an all-time high, I think, for that era. Do you feel that as someone who is such a familiar face from so many of those projects?
Yes, and I'm trying to remember when did this whole 90s, like when did it come back officially? Because it's actually been happening for a while.
Yeah.
It's
I
been
mean,
happening for a while, but I think really more so in the last 2 to 3 years, it's been so obvious. You know
mhm.
what I mean? Versus before, it was like, okay, certain styles were coming back, whatnot. But it is I mean, it's huge. And so I'm like, I mean, I'm happy about it, just because that's just not only was that, I think I'm a familiar face from that time.
Mhm.
So I happened to luck out with getting really great movies and work on some great TV shows that were hugely popular back then.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a lot of current recent TV shows that are set in the 90s and movies that are being set in the 90s now that are brand new. And I love that they're going back. I think it's but also, you sit there and you go, wait, what year is it? 2023? I'm like, I guess it was that long ago. I'm like, doggone it. I'm like, because there comes a time when every decade kind of comes back around.
Yeah, yeah.
It hasn't been that
It's a
long. And I'm like,
bummer.
oh, it has been a long time. Crap.
Well, I will say I
This
feel
is
like
where I
people
open the bottle of wine. Excuse me for a second.
go for it. Go for it. You're right though, and we're going to talk about Cruel Summer. There's a show that in real time. I believe they just what is today? Monday. Yes, I think just last night they just wrapped up season 1. Super successful show on the Hallmark Channel called The Way Home, which
Oh, okay.
is
I'll preview for that. Yeah.
yeah, we those of you who've been following, if you haven't caught it and you like the show and you like one of its stars, Kyler Lay, she was on the show a
Mm,
couple months ago as well, talking
love
about the
her. Oh,
yeah, a-
sweet, sweet girl.
and super popular show, caught fire, renewed for season 2, also
Mhm.
largely set in the 90s. I feel like that's a very intentional thing that I think Cruel Summer was kind of a trendsetter for, because
Yeah.
such a 90s centric vibe to that, which is, one of the reasons why we all loved it. I'm going to go right to that because we had a couple questions about it. How did that role come to be for you? Because I love, you know, it wasn't Cruel Summer was sort of a week to week drama. It was on Freeform. We're heading toward a season 2. It is an anthology series, so I believe it's an entirely new
Mhm.
cast for season 2. But to be honest, I checked it out because just I wanted to see you in it, basically. That was
Oh,
like
yay.
honestly. But immediately got hooked. Couldn't stop watching it.
It's a
Watched the whole.
psychological thriller too. It's a thriller mystery, and I think that's another project that hit a what? Sorry, my puppy just decided to get all hyper and jumped up on my chair and is now trying to eat my armpit.
Oh.
So he's literally a puppy, and of course, right as we're live. So no, but Cruel Summer actually is again another show that I think really grabbed such a wide demographic because again set in the 90s. So then we had the Gen Xers who were in high school in the 90s, the same age as the cat, the kids on the show. And then you have, of course, the millennials, and then, Gen Z got into it as well. So it was good timing for it.
And it was just a good show. Was it fun for you because you've done so many, obviously you've done a lot of movies and you've done a lot of appearances, like one-off appearances on TV shows throughout your career, but the opportunity to be a part of something week to week. And I mean, your character as an attorney was sort of in the center of all the drama and helping to kind of bring the story forward by asking questions essentially and leading to flashbacks and things of that nature. But such a pivotal part of that storytelling. Did you like the idea of kind of being week to week part of the mystery as it unfolded, and especially with people watching week to week as opposed to necessarily binge watching it? I mean, I ended up binge watching it because I caught on late, but leaving people hanging every week, you were a big part of that. Was that fun?
So fun. So fun. And it's funny because even though we actors, by the time it aired, like, of course, we knew what was coming up and what was happening and whatnot. But I will say this, though, is as we were shooting it, as we got the scripts, we'd get the scripts, however many days in advance before starting that episode. So, but that in a way is very similar because we have to shoot one episode, and then we get the script while we're still shooting that episode. We read the script for the next episode, and we're like, oh, so we're finding things out along the way too. So we just found them out a little earlier than the audience, but it was very raw for us as well. In a lot of, there was only very few things, general things that we knew before we actually started shooting the whole series. And that was just the showrunner sharing with us. There were certain things that certain characters needed to know for their character development. But I actually chose to not be told whether or not I win my case or not. I wanted to find out right when the script came in. So I waited till the very end. Yeah.
Wow. Did you feel, was that like for performance reasons or just for your own personal preference, or?
It was for, I wanted to live and experience and grow with Denise as Denise is living and experiencing and, learning about Jeanette.
Yeah.
I wanted that to be raw.
Like us, like the fans.
Exactly. And I wanted to believe what I was fighting for. Here being the lawyer, I was fighting for, I really wanted to believe what I was saying and believe that she's innocent and believe, just believe I wanted to believe my fight as authentically as I could. So if I knew what the result was, I didn't want to compromise that in any way.
Gotcha. Now, we have an entire episode in the archives. Last time you and I talked, we were going back to the Creek. This was all about Dawson's Creek, your time as Heather Tracy. A couple more questions came in, so I want to just revisit it for a minute.
Sure.
Was it fun? I'm going to interpret this question here. Was it fun to be ice cold? And I think by that, what they mean is, to play, because your character was about business. It necessarily had to be about business first. At least that was sort of the initial instinct there, which kind of contrasted with sort of the heart and the passion of Dawson Leary, and almost a bit of a part of a rude awakening when he elevated his career to the point where he was able to work with you. Was it fun to play that kind of character?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, what was great about, well, I don't know if you remember, but when we very first meet my character, which I believe is in the second to the last season. So what is that, season 5, I think, or my character's first introduced in one episode of the second to the last season. Right. And I totally think he's somebody else. So I'm nice. I'm kind of kissing his ass a little,
You think he's somebody much more important than he is.
I totally do. So that's why I'm being all nice. And then the second I find out he's not who I think he is, it's a total 180 shift. And then I go into my Heather Tracy, and she's very Hollywood executive producer, all about the money, and just wants to get it done. She's not the warmest by any means.
Follow-up question is, was it easy to draw from your own experience for that character? Now you've talked a lot, and you're very complimentary and glowing about a lot of the people that you've worked with throughout your career, but just that kind of vibe, like, have you experienced a lot of people who have to necessarily be in that mindset throughout your career?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, I would say, again, the industry has evolved and changed so much. It's really expanded a lot, and a lot of things are done the same and differently at the same time, just because we have so many different outlets now. Before it was just network shows, really, or cable shows, and then we had the box office, you had the movie theaters. Now we've got Netflix and Hulu, and you have all these. There's just a million different platforms. But yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of wonderful, kind producers, who are very business and there to do their job, but that are also fun to be on set with, and work with and all that. But like, have I ever, felt a vibe of a producer? You're like, oh, okay, they're an executive producer.
Yes.
Hello, sir. How are you today? You just say hi and you walk your way, mind your business. And at no fault to them. They're just in a really business mindset. It's not that they're bad people. They're just, time is money. Money is everything. And it's, they're trying to keep on budget, and, they have a lot they carry on their shoulders, a lot of weight.
It's their job. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now here's, I'm going to call her out. Mrs. Truthsayer. Bring It On has a special place in my husband's and my heart. Watched it together the first night we met in 2001, but I've noticed teens today think it's too problematic of a film. Many have voiced its anti-everything because of the several jokes about weight, about race, about sexuality, and have jumped on the bandwagon of aged like milk posts. What's your take on toxic woke culture trying to cancel movies from 20 plus years ago? I will admit that when I finally saw Mean Girls a few years ago, I thought it was highly inappropriate for a teen movie too. So who knows? Maybe my nostalgia for Bring It On is clouding my judgment. I think this is more of a blanket kind of opinion about just looking back at works of art, really different aspects of our pop culture that wouldn't necessarily fly today. But how do you feel we should treat those in present day?
Yeah, I completely see the point she's making, and I respect that. And I think that, it's definitely a conversation worthy of having. I also think I agree with you. These are a part of pop culture, back in the day. And, back then we were in such different times, and, certainly not excusing any jokes that were created and written to be, with the intention of perpetuating any, false narratives or unhealthy, ways of thinking. And so, that are offensive, or, whether it's racial or weight or sexuality, these are all, major issues that we've all been facing more so in these last 3 years as a country, as a collective. We've all been facing this stuff, throughout the years since the beginning of, whatever. But the point being is, I think now that socially, because it's so right in our faces, specifically in these last 3 years, like, in the media and government, and, it's, I think it's heightening and triggers, a lot of topics. And I think I think instead of canceling movies from back in the day that may have been offensive in a lot of ways, I think we can still honor them and still appreciate them for what they were and the intentions back then, and then learn from it and do better now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just in different times, and I'm not making excuses by any means. It's just we're in different times, and it's that back then. I mean, come on, if you think about it, back then, how many people laughed at all those jokes, regardless, regardless of your personal beliefs or if you thought they were offensive or not. I mean, look, Bring It On. I have a lot of male gay friends. I am royalty in the male gay world. They loved that movie. They loved that movie. I mean, and I love my queens. My God, my best friends are gay, but I think even that, they were laughing. So I think, you have to take that jokes like that would no longer fly today.
Yeah.
And probably shouldn't. I mean, let's be honest. I get it. But let's honor and appreciate the past for films and pop culture and what worked then. Let's change them because they no longer work. Mm-hmm. And let's just do better. Let's find different ways to make people laugh that don't perpetuate any kind of false narratives or any kind of, anything that's offensive towards any sexuality to your sex, unless you're dealing with certain dramas that, that need to be pointed out. And it's very intentional to make a whole full storyline, like, like The Whale. And, it's speaking of weight and, so it's like, that's different. But I think when it comes to comedies and, it's like, we can do better now.
Yeah. There's, so I'm in New Jersey, and, the director, of course, if you're watching this show, I'm sure you know Kevin Smith. Of course, you can see him in our archives as well. I
know his daughter. Yay.
Yes, of course. Cruel Summer. So he has his Smodcastle Cinemas here, down the shore, and he has regular screenings of a variety of movies, a lot of his old movies, with a lot of humor that would probably not fly today. But the cool thing is that, a lot of these screenings, he is there personally to give a bit of a Q&A and talk about the movie after the fact. And I'm sure that's a way to kind of address a lot of those types of jokes that they did then, and, maybe how those thoughts about them have evolved now. And that's a cool way to package stuff like that, to allow you to see the movie, but also have some sort of discussion or further thought process to process those things. So
because I agree. It's one of those, I think back then I don't think there was necessarily a direct intention to harm, or, I think, yes, it was for the laugh. And I think because of that, we can now acknowledge and look at it as, but that, it's jokes like this. Now, I'm not saying it's because of these movies or because of TV shows back then, but I think they're examples of one of many, many other things of how society has perceived, races and, overweight community, or, the gay people, it's, it absolutely, as a society, it contributed to a lot of that, of the false narratives. And I think it's good that we should have open conversations like this,
Yeah. I mean, hey, learning from history has always been kind of our thing, right?
Absolutely.
Speaking of history, I want to hit on this real quick. A couple questions about one of your much earlier rules, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So what was the experience like for you in a couple of ways? Because first of all, and we've had Karen Parsons on the show as well. And, everybody, you've seen the reunion on HBO Max a couple of years ago. Everybody talks about how the atmosphere on the night that they taped the shows was like the biggest party in town. Like, DJ Jazzy Jeff spinning, and everyone's like performing in between sets. And what was that environment like to just kind of be around and hang out at?
Oh, so much fun. Well, first of all, I think tape days, because we still have a work day on tape nights. So, the tape days are, man, it's such an adrenaline rush, because during the morning and day, we're still rehearsing and running through as fast as we can all the different scenes. Yeah. And then of course, you stop and they provide you dinner for the whole cast and crew. And as that's happening, you're in hair and makeup, and you can hear the audience come in, they're starting to fill the seats, and it's just, and so then it's a whole different energy and vibe. So you're automatically, because it's live, you're shot in front of a live studio audience, and when all the 4 or 5 cameras are all there at the same time. And so it's so crazy. And then everyone's just pumped up, and then you do what's called a speed read. So in live tape shows, you do a speed read right before we go into like the cast intros of the series leads, and then right before you start taping. Okay. And what a speed read is you literally, the whole cast with the director speed reads through from the script from beginning to end, not acting, nothing, just the lines as fast as you can.
Why?
So we're just saying da 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 da. Because sitcoms are so fast paced. So like with this live taped audience, sitcoms are so fast paced, and there's changes being made constantly. So by time we're taping, we're doing a take. Next thing you know, a network executive comes up, it's being changed. Our entire lines are being changed right before. So, and of course we have nerves going on. We're nervous, your adrenaline's pumping. And since we're in front of a live audience, you want to try to limit as many mess ups as possible if you can. Gotcha. And so the speed read is just for memory to keep the energy going, just so you don't, because we're already nervous. It's very nerve wracking, but it's so much fun. And Will Smith, talk about a crazy, fun, wonderful, warm, funny energy. We do a dance after prayer. We do this dance. It was so much fun. I actually really miss being on that set.
And that was the other question that we had, is that, and I thought this was interesting. I didn't realize, was this among your only, or was it your only studio audience experience in your career? Because
no, I did a lot. Yeah, I did. My career started off with live taped audience sitcoms. Yeah, okay. I did Step by Step. I did Caroline in the City. I'd have to look at my resume. This is how long ago it was, because I really don't. My friends could tell you my whole resume. I couldn't. But no, I did a bunch of live. I did Parenthood, which was, I think, on the WB.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Townsend. Yeah, Robert Townsend. Yeah. Caroline in the City with Leah Thompson. Mm-hmm. What was the other one I said? I said another one.
Step by Step.
I did Step by Step. Yep. Patrick Duffy.
You plug Christina Lakin, past episode. Go check out the archives. Sorry.
Christina Lakin, I love her.
I'm going to drop names.
I love it. No, please do. I actually went to Christina Lakin. I went to her New Year's Eve party a few years back, and she's so lovely. She's so awesome. Yeah, I'll have to check that
out. So that's interesting. By the way, you might want to go fact hunting on the internet, and I don't know where I saw this, but I did want to ask you. It claimed that your first role ever in Hollywood was in Clueless. Is that correct, or is that?
It was my first movie.
Okay. See, I think there's some half false information out there, because
that was my very first movie ever. My very first job was a commercial for Radio Shack.
Nice.
I just moved to LA. I think I'd been out here 2 weeks, and I booked a commercial for Disneyland and Radio Shack. They kind of came back to back.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah.
Disneyland is timeless. Radio Shack is one step away from Crystal Pepsi as far.
Do you realize that there are kids watching that are younger that are like, what's Radio Shack?
What's a radio?
Damn it. I know, right? Right?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think we've covered it all. We've got one more question for you. And before we drop it, I just want to thank you again, of course. always so cool to talk to you about all the things, right? Like there's so many. I mean, I think I may have said this before, and it feels horribly offensive to say it, but in a very broad way, you were almost like the Forrest Gump of 90s pop culture, because you were everywhere with everybody. Like you were right in the mix of everything.
I have never heard that, but the Forrest Gump. I'm not sure whether to say thank you or don't ever contact me again.
You know what I mean, right?
I totally know what you mean. Come on, you gave me an opportunity there. I had to.
I know.
Thank you. No, that's very, very kind. I've been doing this. I've been in the business for 29 years, and I've been very, very fortunate to be a part of some great classics and learn along the way, and excited to see what's to come. So that's the cool thing about this business. It's so unpredictable. It's terrifying, but yet it's so exciting, and anything can literally happen in any moment.
You're the segue queen. That perfectly leads into our last question. You've done so much. You've done so many things. What's something on your agenda in the future for you that would be a departure from the kinds of things you've done before? Like, I hate the term bucket list, but what would be something that you would like to do in your career that's just a departure, a different direction, something you've never tried but would love to?
I would love to. I would love to actually play a real person who's deceased, or you know what I mean. Like I would love to, like, what was that, biopic? Like I would love to play someone. And it makes it even more terrifying, because when you're actually playing a real human being who walked this earth at one time, that was probably historical if they're making a movie about this person. I would love to take on that challenge, because that would be so different than anything I've ever done. And I think it would be utterly terrifying. But my God, what a cool journey! Like as an actor and an artist, to explore and to become someone else's identity.
Do you have anyone in mind?
I'd have to think about that.
Yeah. I mean, whoever it is, like, I'm hearing the truth in what you say as far as how terrifying it would be, because just think about how, especially if it's someone who's still with us and they're still, obviously if they're making a movie about them, the fan base, the following, the importance of that person to so many people.
So much ridicule. Your God.
Exactly. I mean, compared to 1995 now, people would be, tweeting about you before the movie even officially opened. Just the preview shows would either, get you an Oscar or do you in.
It's so true. It's so true. It's like, for example, like if I think it would be so interesting to play someone like, Yoko Ono. But my God, how I would either die as a result, you know what I mean? Or I'd get an Oscar, or at least a nomination,
Right.
So, I mean, it's utterly terrifying to think about that. But my God, if it were to work out, regardless the process, just to experience that challenge, I think that would just be something that I almost can't even imagine right now.
Yeah. We're putting it out there.
Different process. Yeah. It's just a different process than a normal process that I would go about for preparing for a role.
Yeah. Yeah. But clearly something that somewhere deep inside you're yearning for. I can feel it. So, on a spiritual level, this thing and you are moving closer together just by putting
it out there.
Out. Yep.
It's physics. It's physics. It's actual physics and science, man. You put that energy out, you start twirling up some manifestations there. We create, doggone it.
That's right. That's right. And we've created an awesome episode here. Once again, always with you, always a given. It's nothing but net every time. So Thank you for joining us. It's the perfect way to celebrate. Again, guys, any of us who are checking this thing out live, we're celebrating a bunch of things. We're celebrating our new Facebook page, of course, facebook.com/90s to now show. Check out this episode very soon, along with the entire archives. You can get it all right here on Facebook. We're celebrating the winner we're about to drop in a moment for our big vendor giveaway from 90s Con last weekend. Most of all, we're celebrating you, Nikki. So excited to talk to you again. Thank you so much for going back in time and bringing it to the present and covering this entire insane, awesome career that just continues to just get started, really.
Thank you so much for having me. As always, it's always a pleasure. You're always so much fun to chat with. And what great questions. Thank you to everyone out there. If you're live or if you sent in a question on Reddit, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And enjoy your wine.
Enjoy and my puppy's literally been biting me this entire time.
Oh, then, fill her up.
I'm just going to keep drinking. I won't feel the puppy bites that much longer.
There you go. That's how we do it on 90s to Now. Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you, guys.